all that borrowed money that's been keeping us from crashing completely. I mean, it's just a frightening thought. In fact, the ANZ Bank today warned that the federal budget is about to blow out to $230 billion in the red in 1 year. That's our biggest deficit since World War II. Total government debt on issue, nearly $8 trillion, $880 billion, with no sign that that will be repaid for decades to come. Joining me is Australia's top finance guru, Terry McCrann of the Herald Sun. Terry, luckily, thanks for joining me. Luckily, interest rates are very low. So at what stage does debt become a big issue for this country?
Well, Andrew, you've said it exactly. While interest rates are as low as they are globally, around 1%, 1 to 2%, that big debt increase doesn't overly worry me. I mean, it's not obviously a great outcome. I'm much more concerned about what happens after this really peak situation, and hopefully the peak situation, but not only with the debt, but with the underlying economic downturn, and obviously behind that, the virus. If we could end the debt at that $300 billion extra, which we're going to take it up, as you say, to nearly $1 trillion, we could live with that. But it's the problem, as we saw after the GFC in 2008. Once you start running these huge deficits, it becomes almost impossible to wind them back. It's almost impossible to cut the spending in the third year, the fourth year, the 10th year. And it's all too easy on the other side of the coin to think that you can deal with those deficits by increasing taxes, which would actually obviously be very, very negative for the economy.
Oh, that's what we're already hearing. I mean, for weeks we've had this debate, can we keep JobKeeper going longer and longer? That's all borrowed money. And Labor, of course, is always on the side of spend, spend, spend. And I don't know when this fountain of money is going to get switched off. Today's unemployment figures, officially up to 7.4%, the highest this century. The government saying, well, that's not too bad, all things considered. What do you make of it?
Well, the bad news and the truth, as opposed to that fake number, Andrew, is that obviously the impact on work and the impact on families, obviously, across the economy, across Australia, is much worse than that 7.4%. If you actually dig into the numbers, we've probably got something like 20%, not 7%, 20% of the workforce, 1 in 5 workers, either really unemployed, not just statistically unemployed, or only have their job courtesy of JobKeeper. And as soon as JobKeeper goes away, they would lose that job unless the underlying economy is picked up. That is devastating. We've never seen anything like that before. And it's, as you say, it's hanging by the thread of JobKeeper, which is costing billions of dollars a week and adding billions of dollars to our debt. And this is all before Victoria. This is all before the Victorian economy locked down again. And that's 1/4 of the national economy. So 1/4 of the national economy has gone straight back into recession, and that's not reflected in these numbers. And that's also going to have a very negative impact on the rest of Australia, because 1/4 of the Australian economy is in recession. That drags the rest of the economy with it.
Yeah, and all this, Terry, all this is predicated on the idea that, by September we're sort of out of it. And we've just seen in Victoria, we can't make those assumptions anymore.
Well, exactly. And, the underlying reality, Andrew, which I think Victoria has, in a sense, done everyone a service by issuing a big wake-up call, is how fragile is the state of play with the virus, and the expectation that you can actually eliminate it by having 1 month, 2 months, 3 months of lockdown. And at least so far, New South Wales is resisting the idea that will follow, and the Prime Minister as well is supporting that view. But this is a week-to-week, month-to-month thing, and as you've been saying consistently, we cannot throw the economy into deep recession every time you get a surge in the case numbers. So we're going to have to learn to deal with the virus much more effectively than we have to date. I mean, obviously the quarantine debacle is just totally unacceptable in Victoria. We've got to deal with the virus much more effectively, but we've got to wake up to the reality that as long as the virus is around, People will get sick, people will die, but we can't kill the economy as the only means of dealing with it.
Well, considering the last 5 people to die in Victoria were 4 in their 80s and 1 in their 90s, I would have thought we should be able to do far more to protect particularly people in aged care homes. It is a disgrace that it's only this week that wearing face masks was compulsory in aged care homes, which is a main threat for people dying. I just think we've got to get serious, much more targeted. But some hopeful news, or a good idea, Terry, I think, tell me. Hong Kong was for many years a great financial centre in our part of the world. China then took over, cracked down, causing all sorts of unrest, lack of confidence in the rule of law. And now Liberal Senator Andrew Bragg says, why don't we try making Sydney the new Hong Kong, effectively, with tax breaks and so on. And the Prime Minister himself has talked of helping entrepreneurs there escape the Chinese regime. What do you make of this idea? Could we or should we be able to turn the fall of Hong Kong to our advantage?
Well, I don't want to rain on your parade, Andrew, and particularly the time that you spent in Hong Kong. You understand what makes Hong Kong work. But the brutal reality is that Hong Kong has worked in the 21st century because it's been a gateway to China. So I'm sceptical of the idea that we can import all these fleeing Hong Kong citizens. We should. They'll be great additions to Australia. But the sceptical of the idea that we can remake Australia as that gateway to China.
I know.
When the reality of our relationship with China is hardly one that makes us, or should make us, a great buddy of China.
No, look, you're quite right. But in fact, there were 2 things that made Hong Kong what it is. The other one was very low taxes, and cut that out of the equation as well.
And the rule of law. And the rule of law, obviously, was very, very
and the rule of law, okay. But I'm presuming that we have that. But the low taxes, no. Terry McCrann, thank you so much indeed for your time.